Pod Candy,
a podcast about cults, crimes, and killers.
Today we're doing something a little different. This is our best of the cult episodes you love most.
From weight loss churches to sex cults to prophets in prison, we've got a little bit of everything.
Because it's a special episode, we did something we never do. We let Dr. John skip the green room.
I don't know whether to be honored or suspicious.
Both.
I'm going to miss the green room.
Enjoy!
Outside my window, it's only raining. When the wind blows, I feel pain. I don't need no doctor, baby, I'm not sick. My body's been locked up, heartbroken ever since.
In today's episode, we're unpacking Shiny Happy People, the docuseries that examines the Duggar family and their connection to a controversial and deeply damaging belief system, the Institute in Basic Life Principles, or IBLP.
Founded by Bill Gothard, IBLP preached strict authority, submission, and silence, especially for women and children. But behind its moral messaging was a framework of control, fear, and in many cases, abuse. All I got from watching these 4 episodes was like complete anger. Like, I'm angry at these people, and I'm angry that people follow this. I'm like furious of how they treat women and kids, and that these people are now impacting our political landscape.
The man is the ultimate authority. The father's the authority until you get married. The authority then switches to the husband. So until you get married, even if you're 20, you can still be beaten by your parents, physically beaten. And then you get beaten by your
husband. Yep. With a lot of these cults, these religious cults, they don't talk about sex to their children. It's always taboo. You don't kiss until you are married. You don't have sex until you are married.
You don't do a frontal hug.
Right, no bumping privates until you are married. No dry humping, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
But so I think that where we hear about all this abuse and all of the molestation that goes on to children, I fervently believe it is because of these laws and their kids when they marry. Most of these people in these fundamentalist Christian organizations, and also like the Hasidic Jews that we talked about before, the Orthodox Jews, you get married to have sex, essentially. You are
to have children, to enjoy it.
No, you're courted at 16, 17 years old. And then these are your betrothed. So the only way you can have sex is in these fundamentalist groups is if you get married and you have sex to procreate. It's not necessarily about pleasure. However, the men get the pleasure. The women just lay there, spread their legs, and are like, I just want to have kids. That's what this fucked up group is all about, and it makes me furious.
And I have to say, I'm also angry at TLC. I'm angry at how can he have the moral compass that would exploit these people and use them and shape these episodes to convey a particular message. And they did it just for the ratings. I don't think these people were into it themselves, but I was very angered by TLC and how they manipulated the shows and put it on for a sensational effect. So that was my anger.
You can't, like, I don't want to, I'm not a Josh apologist at all. He's obviously very sick, but like you guys are saying, like we're all saying, I blame the parents. It is the parents, it is the whole system of this organization, of a lot of cults like that. Josh grew up thinking, well, this will be okay because everybody kept covering it up.
Absolutely.
So
it's what we call tacit permission. You're really being enabled and you get permission to do what you're doing. And that's another thing that we know is that when that happens in families like this and organizations like this, it's an organizational dynamic. And it goes back to a question you both posed before I got on the show about, well, how does this leader, this Gothard guy, who espouses these values of chastity and et cetera, and yet privately he's raping people and touching people and abusing people. Why? We have a term in my field called sublimation, and what he was doing was sublimating his own twisted, evil desires and needs, and sort of like a cover-up of how could nobody would come to me and accuse me of doing these vile, evil things because my whole program is about good values and the Lord and things like that. So these people in their own ignorance think that that's going to cover up their evilness. And
do they know this consciously? I mean, like when somebody becomes a priest so that they can, and I'm not saying this is bad. I mean, maybe some people want to cover up their homosexuality or their, sexuality or abuse of kids, but it's a similar thing where you're just hiding behind a lie.
Right. And some people know it, some people don't. I don't know. This Gothard is not the most brilliant individual. What's that phrase? The brightest bulb in the box. Or
34 women accused him of sexual harassment and molestation, with some incidents allegedly occurring when the victims were minors. He was sued and it was dismissed. Statute of limitations had been exceeded. Again, with the statute of limitations, I'm so sick of that. It's like these people don't have the education to know to tell people because they think they're going to get in trouble because it's their fault. I mean, it all goes back.
And that's the message to our audience. If this seems strange, something like this comes into your life and it seems strange, a little mealy mouth guy with helmet hair is espousing some crazy shit, it's probably crazy shit.
John, how in God's name, and I say that fully knowing in
Right.
God's name, do the parents not give a shit about their children?
Well, I want to shock you both. I deal with a lot of sexual abuse in my practice of people that have been victims of sexual abuse, molestation, rape when they were kids. And this is not uncommon. To this day, this week, I must have seen 2 or 3 people that have been sexually abused as kids. And here's the point. The point is, every time this has happened, it's typically a father or stepfather or, the male putting themselves upon the young girl. The mothers don't say anything. This is not uncommon. And if there's one message that I hope our podcast gets across to people, you have to speak up about these things.
Keep sweet, Pray and Obey exposes a command and control system built to manufacture compliant girls for sexual and marital assignment under a profit figure. Age was not a barrier. Children were transported, paired to adult men, and told their bodies were sacred instruments of obedience.
This whole religion is based on production of children to become wives of old men, like children of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, to marry these old men and to procreate more babies. The children are treated like utter garbage. They are molested, they are raped, but the mothers, the parents, who they themselves, a lot of these mothers are children themselves. They are 16 years old. They are 15 years old, but they were so adamant about protecting their kids when they were raided because, like you said, it is that brainwashing thing. So Rulon dies. I mean, he's an old dude. Then Rulon dies. And then, Rulon has a million children. But one of the kids is this Warren Jeff. So, okay. I know that there is a pattern of me, connecting with some of these people that we talk about that are disgusting people. However, no. Au contraire.
God. Okay, good.
Warren Jeffs is the most, I think, disgusting, physically, personal. He talks like this. He's so okay. But here's a funny thing that I found about Warren Jeffs. When they showed that clip of him singing, I honestly thought of like, what if this were like Mormon American Idol, where he was like trying out for American Idol, and he's trying to be a pop star, and then later they say that when he was on the run, he was going to Disneyland, and he
he had a motorcycle and a car. And he was drinking.
Yeah, I could totally see him wanting to audition for like American Idol or The Voice. Like, here's Warren Jeffs, our next contestant.
Hey, listen, that song that he sang from prison to those women who were sitting there with their, like, they were like taking notes so they could bring it back to the, to Zion. He was God in heaven, you are sweet. Like it was this gross, weird voice. It's like, and he thought
you should cut that as a demo. I think you should put that out.
And then the girls are like, keep sweet, pray, obey. I love our Father. And they're singing in this weird, the whole thing is so fucked up.
There's a lot of things that I want to say. And, the other thing that comes to my mind is I compared it to, in an interesting way, to the Jim Jones massacre. The Jim Jones situation has become such a part of our cultural lexicon. It's Jim Jones, and that's ultimate evil and crazy. This is of the same scope, if not more evil, because little kids were being raped. And I have used the term, which we've coined here on Pod Candy, of psychological murder. And I hate to say it this way, but with the Jim Jones massacre, people were, drank the Kool-Aid and died. But these people are living the rest of their lives with these scars and this evil that happened to them. And in my mind, that's just such torture. That's why I call it psychological murder. I hope one of the goals that Pod Candy has to make change in this world is, I think we need some kind of legislation or some kind of evaluation of what creates a church in this world. We have so many.
Yeah, and you know what?
People.
It's never going to happen.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't think
I really
so,
wanted to. It's never going to happen. Christian
and that they don't pay taxes, and that they don't have to pay follow the money.
It's the biggest front for rape, abuse, control, manipulation, isolation. It's the one thing they can use to support what they're doing, and they can always support it. It's insane.
One of the things I want to get to too that really bothered me and cuts to my core is I was always taught when I was in med school and earlier that incest was the universal taboo. I remember one professor saying that, you can go across, we find Aborigine tribes and, people in the Amazon, and incest is the universal taboo. No society, no culture condones incest. And here we have this dispelled because this whole thing with all these mixture of wives and trading wives and giving groups of wives to another man is so incestuous and so fundamental.
Yeah, the cousins were married. I mean, this is still happening. It's not like this was, this is no longer. Like, this is what is happening today. And who stops this?
Yeah.
A lot of
Smug.
these people too, it's all about hypocrisy. I mean, Doctor, you definitely we've been highlighting this. It's all about, with this, it's definitely do what I say, not do what
Oh my God. I was literally thinking of that phrase, and I was trying to say the same thing, but I was going to say, do as I
say, not what I do.
Not as I do.
Stacey and I don't know, Dr. John, can you tell us what Stacey and I are so on the same wavelength?
We're separated at birth.
Term for this? Is there a psychological term that Stacey and I are so connected with?
I was going to say the same thing. Oh my God, that was so exciting. Like, you literally, and the phrase is so out of nowhere. Yes, exactly. Do as I say, and
Not
don't do what I do.
Yeah.
But they think what they're doing is right. I don't know. They just justify it. Do you think that they're aware of it?
That's my point. And I don't want to be redundant here, but you're putting money in a empty tomato sauce can to send to this guy to go on this, heinous, what's the word? Hedonistic journey. Even these brainwashed people, can't you see that this is wrong?
The man was wearing jorts.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anything un-FLDS than jorts,
yeah,
I don't know what.
You know what's interesting? The clothing that he chose for these women is very conservative, covered up, and pastels, and all of their hair had to be in this weird French braid. And they looked so, the period wasn't, it doesn't even look period. It looks like they're in like another realm. Today, we're taking a closer look at Teal Swan, a spiritual influencer who calls herself a healer, but who's been accused of leading something that looks a lot like a cult.
Her teachings, especially around suicide, have sparked outrage, and her inner circle is anything but ordinary. The docuseries, The Deep End, gives us an unprecedented view into her world. Teal Swan is this woman who I guess has been out there like on YouTube, and she goes around to, do these like live audience, performances. Well, it is a performance, but
it is a performance.
She basically like is a healer. And part of that is about these people that seek her out are people on the edge. Like, they are suicidal. They are very unhappy with their lives. And she has become a guru to them. And she charges maybe it's more now, but like $5,000 to visit her and take part in these sessions where supposedly she is going to help heal them and make them feel better.
It upsets me because, again, these vulnerable people some are suicidal, some come in and they say, I don't know if I should live or die. And then she says something flippant and very matter of fact, well, what do you think? It's just this arrogant, entitled bullshit. And whether or not she helps people or whether or not they think she's helping them, still it's unhealthy. And I wish these people would get called out. I really do.
I really had a hard time watching this. To me, it was like one of these creepy reality show kind of presentations where these people's lives were just so plastic and so phony that I just was like, this is just tedious to get through, especially 4 episodes. But anyway, which leads me to my emotional reaction. I just felt sadness. I just had this overwhelming sadness for the people involved, of this Teal, because I think this Teal Swan was a very damaged young lady when she was a kid. Had clueless parents that she said took her to all kinds of psychiatrists and therapists, and they weren't helping. And she didn't sound like a mentally ill child. She sounded like a precocious kid, kind of a lot of energy. Parents couldn't handle her. So, and then they give her to this guy to live with, and at 6 years of age. I mean, what parent goes? And the way it was portrayed in the documentary is, my parents, this guy came along and said, well, I can help her if you allow me to live with me. It's like, what craziness is this? And predictably, this guy rapes her and abuses her, treats her like a captive until I think she escapes at 16 years of age. But to me, and here's where the sadness is, especially as a mental health practitioner. This is a failure of our mental health system. This is a child that needed better guidance, better parenting advice from somebody. And these parents, are all over the place.
What is the psychological personality disorder that causes somebody to feel that they need this kind of attention and this kind of praise and, without any formal training? How do you do this? You just get up and say, I know. And she kind of talks in this sort of affected, annoying.
It again, as we talked about a little earlier, there's a lot of damaged people out there that become leaders of other people. And it's like as I tell sometimes patients of mine, it's like the old saying, is a good brain surgeon is somebody who went through brain surgery themselves. I don't want somebody to work on my brain as a surgeon because they had brain surgery. I'd be concerned about their cognitive abilities. So,
yeah, you're right. We ask people.
She portrays herself as a leader, and follow me because I went through all this trauma. I know what it's like. I can guide you through healing like I healed. Well, did she really heal? She's a freaking stone. She has very little emotion. It's been through 5 marriages. Hello. I'm not casting any aspersions in people who have had 5 marriages, but there's something wrong there when you have 5 marriages that you can't hold a relationship, and then has all these people fawning over her. But Stacey, back to your point about what kind of psychological condition is that, and I hate throwing out this term because it's so misused, but it's narcissism.
Today, we are honored to share the story of Harvey Weisberger, a courageous and resilient mother who opens up about the darkest, most personal parts of her life.
Harvey was raised in an ultra-Orthodox Jewish sect led by her own grandfather, and what she endured behind closed doors is both devastating and eye-opening.
She also shares the heartbreaking details of her custody battle, how even after leaving the religion, the courts forced her to conform to the beliefs she had already broken away from. I really didn't know a lot about this until you, Stacey, brought this up that we should do this for our next episode, and I'm very glad you did, because I think I had mentioned to you and John initially, is this really a cult? And as soon as I started researching it and watching this YouTube episode, I'm like, oh yeah, it's definitely a cult. I think it's once again with these religious cults, making women less than, treating them subservient, not giving them the full rights. And also, there's a portion of this that is also about homosexuality, because Javi is a lesbian, but wasn't allowed to be a lesbian growing up, and was forced to marry a man and forced to have children, which he doesn't regret having the children. But
No.
so it is, once again, with a lot of our cult episodes, as we talk about, another example of this, and women treated like shit.
Similar to other, extreme religions like Mormonism, IBLP,
Scientology.
And I have done a lot of research on Scientology, but not as much as I have on the Jesus related religions,
Right.
and the Jewish religions. And I'm also Jewish. There's no vocabulary for either the male or females about sex and what happens and how it works, which is why the abuse is so rampant in these cults, because there's a separation from society. There is an isolation that happens. It's obviously the bite model of all the manipulations, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all those ways. But they're so secluded and sequestered almost that they don't have a vocabulary. So when Javi was at sleepaway camp, she was, sort of messing around with girls, and she didn't even really have a vocabulary for that, because she didn't know that it was quote unquote wrong, which we know it's not wrong. Follow your instincts, and that she was gay. Neither she nor her husband wanted to marry each other, but they were pushed into it. Her father said, "Do you at least respect him?" She said, "Yes." There is a very strong father relationship of listening to the father, getting permission from the father in all of these cults that are religious based. And so without that vocabulary, it feels like a rape, because you don't have any, to not learn about sex until the day before your marriage and the night before, where you meet with the counselor. I can't remember the name of the counselor that works with the women, but we also noticed this in Unorthodox that we watched. There's a lesson where they teach you about what happens, but it's all these convoluted, weird, gross rules. So the irony of this is that they have a special cloth that they wipe to see if there's menstrual blood. All of that is so fucking creepy.
Well, and also too, like, I have to say, if all these people were up in my business all the time, I'd be so pissed.
Yeah,
like,
show us your period stained cloth.
Yeah, exactly.
Ew.
I will keep my period stained cloth to myself. Thank you very much.
It's just disgusting. It's disgusting.
I was blown away by this interview, and more importantly by Javi. What an amazing person again. With all the craziness that's going on in our society, with all these characters we read about every day in the news, on how crazy things are, it gives you hope that there's people like Javi in the world that are strong and intelligent and brave. People are out there like that, and I have to applaud her tremendously. The second reaction I had is when I'm in situations like this, whether it's treating patients or on a consultation or watching something like this, I get so embarrassed being a man. I really do.
You do?
I'm embarrassed being a male.
Oh.
And
you're one of the good ones.
Surrounded by this craziness to women. I'm a little bit of a history buff. And the other thing that embarrasses me and saddens me about male-female relationships is this is not new. Do you realize that in medieval times, some of the craziness that surrounded women and marriage and sex goes back to the 1400s. This is another thing that's so primitive about these groups. I mean, in medieval times, for the upper class, not necessarily the peasant class, but that marriages were arranged oftentimes, especially in the royalty, at 6 years of age, 5 years of age. Your daughter is sold to another kingdom to make alliances, to get property, to get wealth, etc. So what we're witnessing here today is not new in our culture and our history, which is disgusting. We haven't learned anything after what, 1,000 years. It's crazy.
Even though she wanted to leave the community, she was banned from expressing her beliefs to her children for years.
Yeah, and because, that could have caused them to be taken away. And I have to tell you, being somebody who's divorced, and not in the same situation even remotely, Javi's story is she did such a good job with her kids, with, having them come over, giving them a treat, making them feel safe, introducing them to some fun stuff, showing them videos. She was so wonderful with those kids, her experience with them. So now that they are older, and I think her oldest is 20 or something now, I think this is a couple years old, this podcast, I'm not sure. But her kids have an open knowledge about everything now that they're adults. They can really understand. You have to be so careful when they're little what you introduce them to, because they can they don't know they're not supposed to say something. They don't know that if they say, Mom told us X, Y, and Z, that she could get in trouble. And she had to protect herself and them. And I applaud her for leaving, because some people would have stayed because of the fear and also worrying about losing their kids. But she fought and fought and fought.
I think one of the most powerful lessons that comes out of this interview and this discussion today between us is this whole concept of the divorce. And I just want to make a comment for our audience about divorce. Like I said before, about how kids can be a model in, the different households. So don't be afraid of this whole thing of split households and kids have to visit the ex who may be a jerk. Even sometimes evil. You are an island. But also, I want to make a point, and Javi said this so beautifully. She said, I got this divorce so that my kids and I can be a better person. I wanted to be a better parent for my kids. And I can't tell you how many times in therapy that I will say that to parents getting a divorce. Why are you getting this divorce? And of course, there's oftentimes abuse or, etc. But you're getting it to improve your life and to improve the life of your children. That's the focus. So I'll tell parents a statement, and they loved hearing this. Getting this divorce is your opportunity to become the best parent you can be, not vice versa. Oh, we got to stay together, and that's what's best for the kids. No, you're doing this to be the best parent you can be. And Javi said that, and I got goosebumps hearing that, because I wanted to stand up and cheer, even though I was in my study late at night in the dark watching this interview.
There should be more Javis in the world, for sure.
Yeah, I love her. And I should say that, Dori and I are Jewish, and this is not about the Jewish religion in any capacity. This is about control in very extreme cult-like situations. So we'll be talking about Scientology, Christianity, IBLP, Judaism. This is not about Judaism. I'm a very proud Jew.
As am I.
And I'm very happy that Javi and I have a very similar thing. Now, if you want to learn more about Javi, she has a website of her own, which has a ton of information. And that website is harveyweisberger.com. And her name is spelled CHAVIEWEISBERGER.com. And this says a lot of stuff about the things she's done, the interviews, the speaking engagements, training and stuff.
Javi also, her job that she had while she was still in her marriage and still to this day is with an organization called Footsteps, and they're at footsteps.org. And I believe they are the only organization in the United States that help Hasidic Jews get out of their situation and help people who have gotten out of it with other tools, like with children and all of that. And they're based out of New York. You sign up for yoga, clarity, healing, maybe even a sense of purpose.
But Twisted Yoga on Apple TV Plus follows what happens when that search leads somewhere much darker.
The series centers on Gregorian Bivolaru, a controversial spiritual leader who built an international yoga movement that drew in thousands of followers.
Young people especially, traveling across countries, leaving their families, and fully committing to what they believed was a path to enlightenment.
But behind the teachings, former members describe a system of strict control over relationships, sexuality, even their sense of identity.
The doc tracks multiple women who say they were manipulated, isolated, and ultimately exploited within the organization.
And as authorities in Europe begin investigating, the story expands into allegations of human trafficking, coercion, and abuse. So the crazy thing is, like most of us, or I'm sure a lot of people, you go to yoga, like you want to I'm not a yogi. I mean, I've been to many yoga classes. I was really into the bar method for like 2 years. So I think it is, like you're thinking, and I should say these schools are still around, right? Like, so like all these schools. So this is a part
all
of
over the place.
They're all over the world. So it's like essentially like yoga studios, like yoga enlightenment places that you go and you take classes. But then there is this like, oh, you want to get more into yoga. And there is this tantric side of it.
The next level.
Which is the next level, which is a sexual level. But I think it's also, like you mentioned, too, like an enlightenment. Like you are so into your body and yourself. And again, I have never been like this where I'm that in tune with myself, where I want to, know more about myself. Like I'm good knowing on surface level about myself. But I think like what drew like Ashley, Ash, the one who,
I like her.
I read was on the Australian version of The Bachelor.
Really?
Yeah, that's a little side note.
She was great.
Yeah, but she was kind of she was like the whistleblower really to, get what was going on exposed. But I think
I'm correct, she didn't have sex with
No, she never had sex with Gregorian.
Bivolaru. Yes.
She never, I'm just going to call him Gregorian.
But then she felt bad that she didn't experience it as bad as others did.
Right.
That she was the whistleblower.
Right. But like, that's what I'm saying. So like you go to these yoga, like she's just getting into yoga and being very crunchy granola. And then it's like, yes, there's this next level. And she's like, well, of course, like she likes the people around her. She's trusting. It is a part of trust. I do want to say that she liked the people. She liked the class. And she's like, yes, I want to experience more. I want to go to that next level. Little do these women know that next level is giving up your passport, swearing on a Bible.
Oh, that is so scary.
That you will never disclose what happened in these, however long, I guess, retreats with this Gregorian, which is essentially a sex cult.
I did only in college did I do some retreats that involved yoga and meditation. But they were like in no way, they didn't feel cultish or anything like that. But I've been to places like Bikram when I used to do that 20 years ago. Did I tell you guys I used to clean the studio?
No. Wait, you used to clean? Was that your spirit? Was that the way you would get to your spiritual?
I was trying to figure out, first of all, I got free yoga, but the flip side of that is that I had to clean the studio, which meant vacuuming, cleaning out the humidifiers, cleaning the toilets, the showers, everything, all clean. And that was part of my job. Now, I tried. This was a lesser thing, but we know that Bikram has had some issues. They do ask a lot of you at that place. They ask for more than just going to the classes. So there
is it
is
every studio, or was it just the Bikram studio you went to? Like,
it
it's
was the
Bikram.
Bikram
Is Bikram in its like all encompassing? Is that also that they, because it seems like it's similar to this, like they ask you kind of to give up your life. Is that what Bikram is too?
Yes, and I didn't experience that myself, but when I was cleaning and then I wanted to not stop cleaning, and then they didn't want to let me out of that. You know what I mean? So it's just
Of
there was
course,
a little bit of.
who else are they gonna? What other
Yeah, and
schmo are they gonna get to
my
clean
grandma,
the studio?
my grandma goes, I'll pay you to not clean the studio. And I was like, but Rosie, that's not the point. The point is that I'm trying to do something for myself to get
yourself.
something.
You know, this documentary angered me. First of all, you both are so good at picking these cases because, you know, I kind of, Dori, was a little bit like you, you know, when you both sent me the assignment, I'm going, oh, yoga, you know, but I couldn't put it down. This is the most notes I've written on any of our episodes.
He has pages. Wait, can I also say, you have pages? Can I also say too, what we did not bring up is the fact that this Gregorian guy is so unappealing, unattractive, and the fact that these women, lovely women, were coerced to having tons of sex with him. He is the only man who is having sex with these younger ladies. And they even said, I was not attracted to him. A couple of them said, this is not, but they were into the mind, the manipulation of him.
Well, I think what's important for the audience to know, and I totally agree. I mean, I totally agree with you, both of you. What an unappealing man. But remember, they all talked about this process that the yoga was teaching them, the transformation, where you then saw your tantric partner in a whole different sphere. And they became almost neon and colorful.
They had the aura about them then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, mind manipulation. It's just creating a hallucination so that you can have sex with this ugly. He looked, you know, for the audience sake, who's not going to watch the documentary, he looked like Woody Allen with long hair. It's like a long, grayish Woody Allen kind of looking guy. Which
crazy hair.
So yeah, sorry,
Woody.
Woody, but you're not a very handsome guy. You know?
Don't be sorry to Woody. We have our own issues with Woody Allen and his pedophilia as well, his molesting.
But there's so much to talk about this documentary, and what a do's, as we say. And first of all, as I always start with, it was a good documentary. I thought it was well made. But again, this is where we come in with, you know, the hows, the whys, and the wheres of what was going on. And you both brought up such great points that I was dying to talk about. And one was, I think it was Stacey was talking about the money and involved. It always astounds me when I'm watching these documentaries that I'll take Ash. She's from Australia. She travels to Europe. That plane ticket is not cheap. And all the traveling she's doing and to follow this yoga before she was, you know, living with them. Where's all the money coming from these people? Where are they getting the money to back their spiritual journey?
The one person that I do remember is that Ziggy. I'm just going to throw that out there from the get-go. Me likey Mr. Ziggy. Like I would follow him in the tantric world. You just name the country and Ziggy, I will be there.
Have I ever gone on a spiritual journey or anything remotely like this? Absolutely not. And
I figured as much.
We all thought we thought as much.
Yeah.
But here's the key, and this is such one of the big lessons for our audience. How does this happen? I talked about, mommy and daddy are footing the bill for Ashley to go to all this stuff, which I would have loved to seen her parents or one of these people's parents interviewed and say, what were you thinking? Shelling out plane fares and hotel rooms for these girls to live around the world and follow their spirituality. But here's the most important point, and this is very important for the audience to listen to. This follows, and it's an old psychological principle called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You might remember that from college or high school. And what it is that you can't pursue this kind of enlightenment or spirituality unless you have the ability to do it. You're not in what Maslow called a survival mode of life. And I'm sorry, to answer, I didn't mean to make fun of the fact that I've never gone on a spiritual journey, but growing up, I was, as a poor kid, I was always in a survival mode. I didn't think of spirituality. I thought about paying my tuition the next week, at Friday before 5 o'clock, before the bursar's office closed. So if you're at the level of your human development where you're on survival mode, which so many of us are, us working stiffs every day, putting in, bill got to pay bills, you're in debt, this and that, the other thing. And you don't have time or the energy or ability to be pursuing a higher level of existence. And that's what's behind these girls. If you look at between the lines of all these women that were interviewed, they had the wherewithal to just be pursuing this. And they didn't have jobs that they had to report to. How many times has Dori told us, hey, I got to work. I can't make this taping. I'm going to work. That's what I'm talking about in terms of hierarchy of needs.
Right.
At the base level, it's survival. And so many of us are caught in survival. That's why we can't comprehend all this search for spirituality and enlightenment.
Well, also too, like, the attractive man that I mentioned at the beginning, that's Ziggy, like, he's a man. So they didn't go
Dori's hottie of the episode.
My hottie of the episode. But so the women, obviously, there are men who go to again, these yoga centers are everywhere. They're still around. They're all over the place. But, Ziggy was shocked when he heard that this was going on with the women. But in your point, John, with the, who's splitting the bill, there's obviously a lot of these young people, probably older too, that do seek this type of enlightenment. And I think, and not that all yoga studios are going to prey upon these people, but yeah, any money that they're probably making are going to, they kind of know, it is a bit of a mind fuck, because it's like, you do believe in your body, you want to get stronger, you're trying to be physically better, but also yoga does have that mental with the physical and emotional, all of it. And I know that we do things to better ourselves all the time. And even like education, you have to pay up front. So I'm not saying everything is a scam, but all of these, everything is built on this, pay up front, and then you are invested. And then you're even if you have that, that feeling inside of you, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this. It's but I've invested so much, and a lot of that investment
and there's
monetary.
That pressure.
Yeah,
right.
It's a hook. It's a hook.
Yeah,
you just said it, Dori, so eloquently, which is that, I've paid all this money, I've invested so much.
Right.
I have to see this through. I have to see this through.
And then there's more money. I mean, Scientology is the same. Scientology, you got to buy in. I mean, you got to pay all this money for all this training and books and all these things.
Xenu needs his cha-ching. Xenu.
Yes.
Xenu needs to be paid.
Well, and I'll tell you, and another extremely important lesson for our audience is that I can't tell you how many patients I treat where people are in relationships or bad situations, and this whole idea of I've invested so much in this, I can't get out.
Right.
It's like throwing everything away, and I have to sometimes jump up and down with people and say, So what? What's the rest of your life and the rest of your happiness worth, rather than, okay, all this stuff that you've had invested in
I
a
mean, it's similar
bad
to getting
situation?
married, having a huge wedding, and then being like, I can't really get divorced because all these people gave me gifts and gave me presents.
Right.
The Way Down, God, Greed, and the Cult of Gwen Shamblin on HBO Max is the chilling true story of a woman who turned faith into fear and devotion into control. Gwen Shamblin rose to fame in the 1990s with the Way Down Workshop, a Christian weight loss program that promised spiritual freedom through self-denial. But behind the glossy sermons and the big hair was something darker. Gwen didn't just want followers. She wanted absolute obedience. Her remnant fellowship church became a world of strict rules, public shaming, and total control over its members' bodies, families, and souls.
I think the overall view that I got from watching this documentary is that anorexia causes cults. Is that something that you also kind of thought about, that you have to be, at least for remnant church, you kind of have to be anorexic to be a part of this cult?
Well, in order to be accepted by Gwen, you had to give yourself to God. God could help you with weight loss. We should bring up the child abuse in this church, because of the strict, and I've seen this in Mormonism and Scientology and all the other stuff we watch, which is this strict child rearing thing where no matter what, you discipline the child. This child is 3 months old or something and crying and wanting something, and you have to discipline them, and you have to, it's so backwards and crazy, but these people fall for it because they believe it. IBLP, which is the Institute for Basic Life Principles, which we're not talking about today necessarily, has exactly the same belief about this sort of abuse, and it sort of fosters this environment of fear and abuse and control and manipulation.
Why have kids if you're going to abuse them? And that seems to be a theme in a lot of these cults, where essentially you are having children just to grow up and be a part of the church, just to procreate. So that's kind of
right.
And that's no exception with the remnant church. This is what I'm fascinated about, is that so many people were and are still doing this for that greater good of the Lord. And you're so isolated from the outside world. You're not allowed to really research it, go on the internet and look it up and what others are saying. So you just stay in this. And like you said, Stacey, most of these people are gaining it back. And then Gwen, at the time when she was alive, she is now dead, but at the time didn't want these people at the church physically. If you're big, you're not even allowed to attend church services. You can zoom in, everybody, but you're not allowed to step foot in the church if you are not still that physical, really stick thin body. That's insane to
it's
me.
Like she was trying to build an army of people that had this same belief. But we should talk about, you just touched on something, David Shamblin, her first husband, who she divorced. And, aside from, this a little aside, she didn't believe in divorce. She didn't allow people to get divorced. She didn't, this was a big no-no to her, except it was okay when she decided to get divorced. The Gwen Shamblin sort of look, and listen, I am not making fun of her. I'm not trying to disparage her. She's actually a beautiful woman.
She was.
Right. The evolution of her looks, as she got thinner and more powerful, her hair got bigger.
Well, let me comment on that.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Let me comment on that, because in my experience, with people like this who are head of these cults and groups, these nefarious groups, shall we say, their appearance always changes and always changes bizarrely, which kind of mimics their psychological and psychiatric state, that you can almost see a diagnosis in these people. And that's one thing we see in my field is your body appearance, the way you present yourself to the world is also indicative of what's going on inside of you. So Gwen goes from being, I thought at the beginning, an attractive woman, like you said, and then she becomes bizarre looking. And
like macabre, sort of.
And that's really an indication of her inner, dysfunction, demise, turmoil. Yeah. One of the foundation characteristics of cults is a charismatic leader. And they need a charismatic leader. And we see all of these things always have a charismatic leader. Here it was Gwen. They need a deity. They need someone that, is calling the shots, so to speak, and has the truth.
So, while you were talking, it just brought up a thing for me. Do you think that Gwen believed what she was saying? Or do you think it was an act that maybe it started off as an act, but do you think it was really subconsciously her beliefs coming out? Or was it a way to get money? Which one? Or is it both?
I think you just said the answer right there. It was both, but the both evolved. I do think that this Gwen Shamblin, at the beginning of the start of this whole thing, really believed in what she was saying. And I think there's almost like an aha or whoa moment, like, wow, I can get other
This is working.
Yeah, it's working.
Right. Yeah.
And certainly she got caught up in, not only is it working, but I'm getting, exceptionally rich by espousing this and having these followers. So I think that came later, but certainly fueled this cult from the beginning. But I think it started out with, she believed this, and which brings me to a comment. It's maybe a little catty of a comment, but these are not bright people.
That narcissism and that ego really, I think, fueled the whole thing, the whole cult in general.
But again, I want to emphasize this kind of ignorance of these people. And we're going to see in a lot of the episodes we talk about, there's a baseline of just ignorance, that's going on here. But people, you're giving people something that they want. You're giving them answers. You want to raise your kids well, you beat them. There's your answer. You beat them to submission and, have them read the Bible. Let's face it, people want the guideposts, the rules of how to live, because we're not given that. We're not born with an instruction manual. And like Dori said earlier, even these cult leaders, nobody gives them there's no cult leader school.
Right.
That could be an interesting little spinoff for us, right? We could develop.
I think that's our next podcast, right?
Yeah.
We're creating
let's
our own
get a curriculum
school
together.
Oh, we could totally have a cult.
Please stay tuned for our next episode, Maternal Instinct, on Netflix.
If you love our podcast, consider donating any amount to buymeacoffee.com/podcandy. Every bit helps us keep creating the true crime, cult, and pop culture stories you can't stop listening to.
So people can buy us a cup of coffee?
Thanks so much for listening. Our theme music is written and performed by Midnight Current. Check out more of their work on SoundCloud. For more about us and to catch up on every episode of Pod Candy, head over to podcandypodcast.com. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.
Pod Candy!